Hey everyone, John and Ray here. Today we come to the table to ask ourselves, is Power Ledger ready to jump? So jumping straight in here, Power Ledger is a very interesting project. One thing that really stands out with Power Ledger is simply the overall, well, I guess bullish nature to it. Even with deep pullbacks like we saw back in early December, the buyers were unwavered, and now we find ourselves right back up towards the highs and floating around that $2 mark once again. Now, Power Ledger has a relatively large total supply, right? Whenever we see it, yesterday we were talking about Genesis Vision having a very low supply. In this case, this is a polar opposite. We have a huge supply, right? Count the commas, right? We've got 1 billion power total supply. Now, in circulation, we only have 360 million, but that is still a big supply of coins. Now, comparative to something like Bitcoin, who's trading at 21 million total supply, you can see the difference here, right? So this isn't a coin that you're going to see floating at around the $1,000 mark just because the total supply really wouldn't allow that to happen. It's the same thing with Ripple. With such a huge supply, it's going to be unreasonable to expect such a huge price tag on something that there are just so many of. Now, we have to keep that in mind when we're looking at Power, especially if you're looking at a long-term investment type thing. But with Power, with 1 billion coins, that's definitely something that could stand out to be, in the range of a $5 to $10 coin in the next several months to years. But as of right now, does it look likely that it's going to jump back above $2 and maybe even a little bit further? It definitely is possible. Now, if we look at the overall markets, first of all, this is traded on a lot of different things. Bittrex, of course, has the market dominance on this, trading a lot. And you'll notice one thing that stands out on all of them, they're all around that $1.70 mark, except for TDAX, which is trading THB, and I don't know what that is, but that's at $2.23. But for the most part, no real arbitrage opportunities inside of here, at least none that are really worthwhile. So not anything that we have to worry about there. We're all floating at around $1.70. So if we zoom in and take a look at the charts instead, maybe they can give us a little bit more of a clue. Now, the one big thing that stands out, of course, is the overall bullish nature that we have. Even with this monster dip off of the highs down to the low early December or so, they have taken all of that back. And to put that into kind of perspective, from the highs down to the lows, that is nearly an 80% pullback. That's 78.4% on that pullback. So they definitely sustained a long time where they were sitting in the red. Buyers were buying more, dollar cost averaging in, all that fun stuff. But they have now made it back to the highs. The one thing that stands out here is simply the fact that the highs are in a little bit of a troublesome spot. Right? These previous highs, if we draw those across, we can see when they tried to break out, it was an initial failure. And when they came back, didn't do so well, and now we're testing it again, and they're not doing so well. We do have a very strong bull bar kicking this off. In this area is what I'm really going to be focusing in on Power. With this overall momentum to the upside, we have what's I guess you could call kind of a wedge. It's not the most, beautiful looking thing in the world, but we are getting a little bit of a wedge formation as well. My eyes are mostly on this big level just underneath 12,000. What I want to see for Power is a breakout above this. I want them to prove that they have the gas in the tank to really hammer through that area. And if they do, then you're looking at a potential buying opportunity on the next pullback. Now, of course, you could look to potentially buy in as early as you want. I'm sure there are still buyers that are way back here that are still holding on to it with that common HODL, right? That HODL, that hang on for dear life type of mentality, looking to hang on for the next year, which is, I think, an applicable argument. Technically speaking, though, where Power Ledger is at the moment, I would really like to see a breakout of these highs for continuation up, but I do think that there is some early potential buying opportunities within this to get in a little bit early for the breakout up to a new high. Primary objectives are going to be above 13,000 to 14,000, and if we measure up this distance of the last breakout from that previous swing high to the most recent swing high, that's a reasonable assumption to assume that they're going to break out above this next high with about that same amount of fortitude, I guess would be the best way to put it. One other thing to consider, of course, would be a possible wedge top coming into play. and that would put price at a little bit lower, right? So depending on when they break out, if they were to break out right now, that doesn't give them a whole lot of room. But if we do get that breakout move above that major level, right? We break out above that level, we start pulling back. That will give us more and more room. And the longer this takes, the better the odds are that we're going to get a bigger move through those highs. So technically speaking, we have a very good opportunity of buyers attempting to push into the highs, but not so much of breaking through the highs unless we take a little bit more time. Now, crypto markets do tend to have these little pause and go type scenarios where we get a big move, we pause for a while, and then they break out and we pause for a little while. And one thing that I always like to keep in mind is in that pause, what happened, right? Did they pull back really far? Did they stall? Did they not go anywhere? Was it a straight breakout afterward? You know, what was the clue that we were getting on power? And in this case, what I like to do is measure the pullback. We pull back all the way down almost 40%. Now, that does still seem like a lot, but if you compare that to the previous pullback of 78%, we can see that the buyers are gaining a lot of aggression on this. They're not even letting it pull back 50% now before jumping on in, and now we're starting to see 40% pullbacks. If we break out the next high, we might see a 30 or a 20% pullback. So that aggression is definitely consistently increasing along with all of the highs and everything else. So right now, for me, I'm looking at this as a potential trading opportunity to push the market back up towards the highs, break out of that previous level of resistance, right? Use it as support and continue on our merry way. A couple areas of course, interest at these levels at the top, but this could also be a potentially longer term hold and something to hang on to. As always, like we always have to say, make sure to do your own homework. I am not a financial advisor. This is just me rambling about a coin that I find interesting, but it is something to definitely keep in mind and look forward to a possibility. If it fits your trading plan, you might have something going here. So that's going to do it for this one. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you found it interesting, a little bit useful, and maybe something you can add to your tool belt. Until next time, we'll see y'all then.